Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Winging It F1 podcast. Yes, the F1 action might be underway at Spa, but there was some big news dropping on Friday morning, or that was dropped on Friday morning. That makes more English grammatical sense.
I think it's lost at this point, mate.
Yeah,
Don't stress too much.
Me and Adam, I know, 146 episodes, I still can't intro. Me and Adam are here to talk about it. It is Audi have announced they will be joining F1. We don't know yet if they are taking over a team. That is what is highly likely to happen. It is probably going to be Sauber from everything that's been talked about this week, but they have officially registered as a power unit manufacturer. So at the very least, they will be running an engine from 2026 when the new Formula 1 regulations are implemented. Audi, of course, have been very successful in the Endurance Championship at Le Mans. You know, Tom Christensen's won, I think, all of his Le Mans titles there, and so many other great Audi drivers have won in WEC, this century. Formula E as well, they've been successful, rallying back, in the 80s, and now for the first time, joining F1 from 2026. What's your initial reaction to the news, Adam?
Does Kamui Kobayashi race for Audi?
No.
Oh, I thought it was going to be a return for my favourite Japanese driver. It's large, isn't it? It's still... Yeah, it's kind of, obviously it's been coming for a while. It's a bit of a weird announcement like that, where it was expected. Now they've said they're joining, but they've not said they're coming with the team, but everyone thinks they are going to come with the team. So yeah, it's a confirmation, but yeah, it's pretty big in terms of, it's the first manufacturer joining manufacturer engine joining since Honda, or, unless you count Red Bull. So yeah, from that angle, it's a pretty big step, because F1, I really, aside from some kind of minor issues when you dig down into it, F1 has been getting better and better over the last few years and been getting more and more fans, and the racing's been getting more exciting. But the one weakness of that is it feels like it only takes one team, and then you're down to fold, and then you're down to 9 teams, and then you're really in trouble. So it feels quite precarious, despite all the success they've enjoyed. Then it did feel like there was a need for another team to come in and just boost and just give them that safety net, because we've seen over the years, and I guess more towards the start of when we were watching, but it's always possible that an event can happen and that can push a team over the edge. So that was what prompted Haas to bring in Mazepin last year. So I think it just strengthens F1's position, and I guess makes it a much more reliable, corporately and commercially, a much more reliable product.
Absolutely. And I think people should know this. This is huge news. This isn't like Aston Martin joining a couple of years ago, when when it was just basically a marketing thing, which it still is. This isn't like Alpine joining. This is a brand new manufacturer, Audi, absolutely massive, first time in F1. This is one of the biggest new team pieces of news for the last 6 or 7 years. So it is absolutely a huge announcement. They are expected to take over Alfa Romeo Sauber. Ironically, Alfa or Sauber, as they were called then, it started with Mercedes, and then they went to BMW, and now they're going to be with Audi. So they've been with like the 3 rival German manufacturers over the last 30 years or something like that. And they were very successful with BMW as well. Let's not forget. I mean, that was the height of their success. So I'm not saying it's going to return to that, but with more money, which is the main thing in F1, to invest and develop new regulations, and with Audi coming in because of the increased use of electrical components, the engine is changing from 2026, so there could be a bit of a reset there. It could be, it is going to be a new era, but hopefully it'll be a new era where Alfa, it might sound mad right now when they're nowhere near the front, but it could be at the front with that investment.
Yeah, and they were even good in up until in the early 2010s, with Kobayashi and Perez, and that was why Hulkenberg went there. I think he left Force India to go there, and that kind of went badly. But he had basically the run the table from the midfield, and that's where he picked. And I know that's 10 years ago, but it's 10 years ago isn't that long in F1 really. So yeah, I think from Alfa Romeo Sauber's point of view, it's very exciting because the Alfa Romeo partnership's just not done anything. Like it's just, like you said with Aston, it's just been kind of very skin deep, and that's it. And yeah, it just doesn't look like a team going forward. I know they've tried to freshen up the driver lineup this year, but they've been toiling away with Raikkonen and Giovinazzi for a while now. They've got Bottas and Zhou, who are good, but they're not, I guess, the most exciting lineup. It's maybe a bit more dependable than exciting. So yeah, I think from their point of view, they have to hope that there'll be that opportunity to really skyrocket, because like we said, they can do it, and they have put together some very successful seasons in the past. So fingers crossed. There's a lot of bridges to cross before that, but fingers crossed it can be the start of something like that.
Absolutely. We're expecting Porsche to announce that they're going to join F1 or return to F1 after a very long time as well, but with Red Bull from 2026. But I mean, that's been talked about for months now, and still hasn't been announced. Not quite sure when that will be confirmed.
Another emergency podcast coming up.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be for a couple of weeks at least. But
it's got until 2026. So
yeah. But I mean, the only thing with this is, and we can talk a bit about Andretti here as well, is I would like to have seen an 11th or 12th team rather than a big manufacturer taking over. It's not an independent team because the Alfa Romeo backing, but a current team, let's say, because F1 does need more cars. It does need more drivers. I guess there's so much talent in motorsport now. We've seen with this silly season how McLaren have signed like 12 different drivers and that kind of thing. Yet only 2 are going to get this. Or well, 1 next to Lando Norris is going to get the seat. So it would have been nice to have seen, Audi come in all by themselves. But I can equally understand they want to, if they did do that, it would be at a disadvantage, I guess, because especially being it their first time and they have no F1 experience. So I can see why they've done it this way. But
yeah,
it would be nice. But it would be nice to see an 11th team on the grid.
Yeah, I think it's just. I think there's just been too many times where that's tried and failed. I mean, I guess Toyota is the most obvious example that I can think of, in that came in, tried to do it their own way, and just didn't. They had one shot in 2009 where they potentially could have done something, or at least should have won a race, but it wasn't. There's just stuff like that, and at the end of the day, if they win as a kind of partner to Sauber, or they win as their own team, I don't think it makes that much difference to people's perception of it, and the marketing of it. It's still Audi winning, and people don't drill down into whether it was the car was made in Germany or Switzerland or wherever. So I think that's just the thing. So yeah, I agree. It would have been nice, and kind of like I talked about before, F1 is in a precarious position with this. So yeah, it would have been really nice, but I can see it. It just doesn't really make, I guess, financial sense to do it when there are so much easier way of making those gains in by taking over another team. And Sauber's obviously got that setup, got that history, but is always looking for a cash injection, always looking for a partner. So yeah, it's a shame, because if a car brand was going to do it, you'd think Audi would be one, the biggest like European one. They'd surely be the one that could, but I think they've just decided that it's not either worth their time or not possible.
Yeah, I think you're right. A bit on Andretti then, because this week Stefano Domenicali, the F1, I forgot his position. That's not good.
CEO,
CEO, no, one of them said he was asked about Andretti because they've been rumored to join the sport for 12 months now. Nearly took over Sauber actually last year, but that didn't quite. It does seem that they want to come in as a new team. and it was Michael or Mario. What
I think it was Michael.
Or Mario Andretti? Yeah, they announced on Twitter a few months ago now that they wanted to join F1 and apply through the FIA. But it does seem that there's a bit of a, let's say, I don't know, people or some teams don't want it to happen. And Domenicali said, I'll quote him, he said, I think that today in the actual status of F1, it's not a problem of quantity where we can see a step of increasing the value of F1. It's a matter of really understanding, and then he goes on to say that the evaluation is not only with Andretti, the evaluation is with others that are respecting the science and trying to be more productive on proving who they are. Basically, he isn't very positive on Andretti, and it does seem like he isn't encouraging, let's say, new teams, which I completely disagree with. I think Andretti joining the grid would be massive. We've talked so much about how having an American team and possibly bring in an American driver, that is how you can truly crack the American market even more. Yes, they've got Las Vegas and Miami have joined this year, of course. But it just seems like if Andretti can't join as an 11th team, who can? And this is a sport where in the past, teams that did not have the status of Andretti or the funding or the history of Andretti, they were allowed to join. Because I mean, only 10, 11 years ago, we had HRT, Caterham, and the Virgin, who turned into Marussia, joining the grid. And yes, they were at the back, but they were allowed to join the grid. I don't understand why Bush from some teams who don't know who they are, of course, and now F1 are kind of downplaying Andretti's chances. They should be all over it. They should be signing them up straight away, in my opinion. It is. I don't really get it.
Yeah, neither do I. It seems very defeatist. I just don't. Obviously, the F1 teams are under. There's. Obviously, it's a closed shop at the moment, and I guess that suits the people that are already in because they're the ones that get. If someone comes in, there is a chance that they lose revenue, and if they're in 11th or in 8th but behind another team, then that's not looking as good as if you're in 7th when there's 10 teams, and when you're trying to, I guess, sell that to obviously the prize money, but also when you're trying to sell that to sponsors, then it can make a difference. But it just doesn't. It's not. There's no point having. You need to have other teams in. Like there's no point having the best house in town if the rest of the town is burnt down. Like it's just not. You need to have a thriving F1 to be able to make the most of it as a team in it. And a thriving F1 would include an American team, a name that is synonymous with motorsport and has huge history in F1. And I just don't. I'm like you. The only thing I can think of is it's just protecting their self-interest. And if so, that's such an insular way of looking at it.
I think that is the reason. I think that is absolutely the reason. Yeah.
But it's just such a short-sighted, short-term, cutting off your nose to spite your face way of looking at it.
Yeah. I mean, I asked Christian Horner about it about a month ago, and he was very supportive of Andretti joining. So it seems like, some teams are wanting it to happen, like Red Bull, but other teams don't, which is, and I know F1's very political, that kind of thing, but surely this is a massive chance. They're scoring a massive own goal if this doesn't happen, because how often is a team like Andretti, as big as Andretti, one of the biggest independent teams in the whole motorsport world, it doesn't get much bigger really, are going to come knocking on F1's door, when F1 is at such a great level as well. They're missing a massive opportunity. So I don't know. It just seems with every day that passes. We did a podcast again a few months ago now when the Andretti thing was first announced, and I think we were all raving about it. But with every day that's passing now, it does seem less and less likely. So who knows? I think F1 needs more teams. Andretti would be the perfect fit, just because of who they are. So yeah, we'll have to see. But it doesn't look good.
No, it's not looking very optimistic for them. But yeah, I just don't. You've got, is it 300 million threshold payment that you've got to make just to get into the sport in the first place?
200, yeah. Even though Williams were bought for 150.
Yeah.
Which is so that's why teams, you'd rather buy, Williams, for example, than spend an extra 50 million to make to start your new, to have a new entry.
Yeah, it just, but can agree or disagree on that. But regardless, how many teams do you have that are wanting to do that? How many people do you have coming up going, yes, we want to spend this, just not, just to effectively get a racing license and be able to join the paddock? Like, you don't have many people who are able to line up and say that. So yeah, it just seems remarkably short-sighted, but it's F1.
Yeah, it's F1. So yeah, we're going to finish off with a little bit of news that we all kind of knew was coming because we didn't react to the official announcement. That was Daniel Ricciardo, McLaren announcing on Wednesday that he will leave at the end of this year. Now, we have talked about Ricciardo a lot, but it did seem from his body language, and I'm not a body language reader, to me, the main take was it did seem like he isn't sure about his future. Now, he could be playing a bit of a poker face, that kind of thing, but from how I interpreted the social media video he put out there in a press conference on Thursday, it did seem that way. Is that how you saw it, Adam, or do you think he's got something ready?
No, it was very, the way he was talking didn't seem certain about what's coming up, but I think that maybe confirms what we've been saying, that it's not, if you have 2 years toiling with a team, that just really harms your stock. Like, it doesn't matter how good of a driver you come into a partnership with a team as, that is, it effectively all resets when you're there. So yeah, I agree with that assessment. I think it still definitely wouldn't be a surprise to see him on the grid next season, but just the way he was talking did feel very not sure what's next, hoping for something to come up.
Yeah. And now, were you expecting it to be Piastri now, or are you still thinking Palou?
Oh God, I don't know. I've given up.
It's got to be Piastri, hasn't it? It has to be.
Yeah, you'd think so, but I don't know. I'm giving up trying to, like, everything has just been wild. Like, it's not that there's not a, Ricciardo's announcement is the only thing that's been predictable so far. The contract board is meeting on Monday, to discuss that. So, I mean, toss a coin then, to be honest, because I don't know. We're not privy to any of that. So both teams seem to think they have a rock solid case, and I don't really see. I think Alpine would take Piastri still for the season and just say, well, we signed you. So absolutely. I think it all rests on that, and we don't know what's going to happen, and then who knows.
Yeah, just to read out the official thing, the F1 Contract Recognition Board will meet on Monday to see if either McLaren or Alpine have the services of Oscar Piastri from 2023. Both teams obviously think they do, so we won't hear about the Piastri news for at least another 5 or 6 days, if not longer, because this could run on. But yeah, I think my take on Ricciardo now, he got a lot of empathy / sympathy from other drivers, which I found, it's not that surprising actually, but ultimately he hasn't performed, has he? So and McLaren, I'm sure, have done everything they can to try and help him become competitive. So I think he can only blame himself, and he'll know that deep down. I think he can play the game of it didn't work out, but he'll know it's the driver's job to work it out, maximise the car. It hasn't happened in 2 different forms of car regulations now, and I don't know. I think because this has been announced now, I feel like McLaren wouldn't have announced something without him kind of agreeing or coming close to agreeing to joining a new team. So I do feel like Alpine or Haas are the destinations for him to go. I'm really not sure which one, but I don't know. I would edge towards Haas now. I think. And then I'll Schumacher to Alpine or something. That'll be my guess. But it really is very difficult to say.
I still, this is just kind of conjecture really, but I guess my gut feeling is just Alpine feel like too proud a team to go back to Ricciardo. That's just like to me that's the issue, or that's where I see the stumbling block. I think they'd rather go with someone else and see if they can figure it out. But it's really, it's all up in the air. They could, if obviously, they'll take Piastri, I believe, if it's ruled in their favour, and if not, I think I agree with you. I don't think they'd announce it now unless they had to, and I think the reason they'd have to is Ricciardo signing up with another team, and if that was the case, then it wouldn't be Alpine Ricciardo being close to another team, and if that was the case, it wouldn't be Alpine because they're still in for Piastri. So that's my kind of rough thoughts, but as I said, nothing has gone the way we expected it to. So it's not, take that with a tablespoon of salt.
Tablespoon, that's dangerous. That's a lot, isn't it?
You don't have to eat it. You just have to have it there while you're listening to the opinion. But I've said that after the opinion, so they can't. So sorry.
I see. Don't do that, viewers and listeners. Don't eat a tablespoon of salt. It's not good.
No.
So that was a little short podcast there and talk about the latest news in F1 over the last couple of days. It was always going to be a bit hectic going into the Belgian Grand Prix. We should be back after Spa, depending on plans and that kind of thing.
Well, you should be.
I should be, but I don't know if I can do it by myself. That will hopefully be out on Monday. But if not, we'll be back to look at Zandvoort or review Zandvoort. Again, depends on work and plans. We will try and get something out over the next 7 days. Until then, thank you, Adam, and it's goodbye.
Bye.